So in 1995, Genndy Tartakovsky turned a student project of his into Dexter's laboratory. In 1998, he took everything nice and created the Powerpuff Girls. In 2001, he imagined Samurai Jack, and over the course of the Samurai's 17-year journey until the long-awaited final season, Genndy directed Symbionic Titan and Hotel Transylvania, all three of them.
Nice, but maybe a little more square footage. I want a lot of monsters here.
Genndy Tartakovsky gave many people their childhoods with his work in animation.
I couldn't draw a circle.
But then he took the countless lessons he learned from each of these works and applied them to something far darker, far more mature, something more primal. Genndy Tartakovsky's Primal is weird. There is no dialogue, other than grunts and irritated roars. It's an Adult Swim animation with tons of delicious gore. The world gets even weirder and more the longer we spend in it. Our protagonists are a caveman and his ornery dinosaur, Spear and Fang. Both had to helplessly watch their families ripped apart in front of them, left with only each other in this cruel, beautifully animated world. This feels like a massive departure from Genndy's earlier Saturday morning cartoons, but this is actually more of a Saturday morning cartoon for adults. The DNA is still there. Genndy has a philosophy in his animation, and uses the lessons learned from Samurai Jack especially to bring them into the limelight. In Samurai Jack, you have a stoic man of few words, able to cut down his foes in an endless struggle for survival in a hostile, unfamiliar land. By the 5th season, we see the impact of that harsh existence on his character, and that's also when the tone and pacing of the episodes most closely matches Primal's. In one of Samurai Jack's most famous episodes, The Three Blind Archers,
It's the first episode that everything worked at such a high level.
the episode's look and feel completely changes into stark contrast and nothing but beats in action. There is no dialogue, only pacing, and this is where Genndy truly shines.
An action sequence is done really well. Like if you ever watch Bruce Lee, it's very rhythmic. It just goes. So you start to realize like, oh yeah, good action has good rhythm.
Genndy understands the importance of pacing to deliver something truly compelling.
Through my career, my timing went from really quick and snappy to slower and slower and slower. And what it's doing is it's sucking the audience in, because you need all your senses to really watch it, where a lot of shows you can just kind of turn off and still listen and get everything. And with this show, obviously you can't.
The viewer suddenly pays more attention when there isn't dialogue, not less. And this gave Genndy an idea.
People kept saying, oh, I love the sequences where there was no dialogue. And then it kind of hit me like, wow, could I do an actual half-hour show made up of just those sequences? And all of a sudden I remembered, oh yeah, I had that little caveman boy and dinosaur idea. Well, let me see if I could do it.
Show don't tell is easier said than done, and most shows completely fall short of that lofty goal.
Sometimes the mood is enough. And so that's what we try to do, is just set up this vibe and take your time. You watch the speed of everything now is so fast and it's so in your face that this is complete opposite of that.
Genndy Tartakovsky didn't just take lessons from his own works. He grew up with masters of the craft like Akira Kurosawa in film or Tex Avery in animation. Kurosawa knew how to use careful cinematography, movement within the frame, and well-paced editing to tell a story in images alone. You could easily watch a great film by someone of his caliber, with sound completely muted, and through only the visual medium take in the characters and their struggles. Tex Avery, in the realm of animation, emphasized his characters' poses, storyboarding them with timing and performance in mind. Genndy understands that in film you can play off the actor's face, but in animation every frame counts, and performance is recorded behind a sound booth.
Okay. You're welcome.
And the sound effects are created by Joel Valentine. And Joel and I have worked since Two Stupid Dogs together. His biggest challenge was creating a voice for Fang.
Genndy had to figure out, especially in the quieter moments, how Spear and Fang would communicate, if not to each other, to the audience.
Because even though the show doesn't have words, it does have dialogue.
One of the most fun things is Studio La Cache. I actually recognize their signature style from one of my favorite Love, Death, and Robots episodes.
It's exciting because it's like you're getting this fresh talent. They're super into it. They want to give it the best. Like it's not a job for them yet.
Et donc nous, on est tombé de notre chaise parce que voilà, Genndy est une rockstar de l'animation.
This French studio not only made Spear and Fang's relationship shine, but also realized the vast, incredibly strange world of Primal. It's breathtakingly beautiful, but surreal, horrifying, magnificent. By season 2, the character designs become that much more refined, but the coloring and line art, the rougher feel, makes everything pop like a graphic novel brought to life. This isn't even to speak of the music.
Music is so important and key in the storytelling.
Lucky for him, he was fortunate enough
To work with Tyler Bates along with Johan Higginbotham. It took us a little bit of time to find the sound because you want something unique. It's complex, but it's still very, very simple. You know, a lot of percussion, guitar.
which also helps inform the fight scenes. Genndy says,
Any kind of rhythm you can establish, you're going to be successful. When you're doing things kind of haphazardly and there's not a plan, that's when it feels like just an action sequence. And I think about it like a musical composition. So here's going to be my fast parts, and here I'm going to slow it down, and here I'm going to get going again.
The music not only highlights his character's states of mind, but provides the beats to make the back and forth of an episode even more like a controlled roller coaster, a feeling of being in the hands of a great director. Mr. Warner Bros. Himself, Chuck Jones, once said,
"There's no way that anything can work unless the timing is exact."
In the fourth episode, Terror Under the Blood Moon, this back and forth is made especially clear. Because our heroes appear to wind up at the same place as the start, but the ups and downs to get there, nearly dying several times, took a warrior's wit and a dinosaur's determination, using one deadly threat against another in order to escape and ride off into the sunset. Then on top of all that, you have the gore. Mr. Tartakovsky has outdone himself. Fight scenes are spectacles of blood and bones. The world has brutal consequences and is therefore a lot more terrifying.
You know, anytime you're doing violence, there's a sexiness to it. I was worried that, well, you know, people are going to see the gore and not see everything else.
Real trauma and character transformations have more gravity than they otherwise would.
Thank goodness, the relationship is so much more important than anything else.
Episode 5, Rage of the Ape Men, was easily the most violent, most shocking episode up to that point. Not just because of the resulting insane gore fest.
Was there ever a moment where you were kind of looking over like the level of violence? Maybe we could tone it down.
It was actually the opposite. I go, are we getting too soft?
But you know, the implication of having a shaman monkey business death cult being real. If the world has something like this, what else could be out there? Before, you're probably thinking the world of Primal is just ahistorical, but otherwise set in a specific realistic time. But Genndy was actually inspired by Conan the Barbarian, vintage pulp novels, also The Revenant. Like boiling a frog, he slowly turns up the temperature on the fantasy elements, leaving room for intrigue and imagination without stooping to bloated wackiness. He's able to give a grittier feel over time to a world of giant bloodbats, horrible monstrosities, dancing elephants, and even seemingly intelligent creatures, engaging in sacrificial rituals, enjoying blood sport. As you uncover the world, it doesn't just have dinosaurs, but magic and zombie dinosaurs. And then, maybe the most disturbing of them all, a woman. We encounter Mira at the very end of season 1. She appears to be an escaped slave. She speaks an intelligent language Spear doesn't know and prays every night. Spear develops a crush and imitates her almost immediately. She is the first human we've seen. Spear and his family were likely Neanderthals. There are more humans out there who just haven't made contact yet, with their own languages and cultures, religions. Intentional evil has entered the equation, unlike anything our duo has encountered thus far. More so than any foul beast or alien being, suddenly the world feels that much larger, and humans suddenly seem the most fascinating, the most terrifying. All Spear learns of language is her name, and it is the first and last thing he utters as he watches her recaptured aboard a ship by a slaver, heading into the vast unknown he's never tread before.
Mira.
If the first season is about Spear and Fang getting along and becoming a well-oiled machine of death, protecting each other, squabbling and fighting for another day, the second season is about rescuing, venturing into the unknown, encountering a different evil, and growing as a family. Before, everything was impersonal and not very morally gray. The fight was against nature for the right to survive, to keep this new family going, but now it's against true malevolence, against sadistic rulers in different cultures. The stakes have been raised in a number of ways. Despite being separated at one point, Fang must defend Spear and a peaceful village of humans from her new mate, and it's at the cost of his life. Now they are walking the line between nature and society, unable to fully conform with humanity, making decisions that complicate things that much further. Spear and Fang, in order to rescue Mira from the slavers, must defend themselves to escape, but it becomes an entire slaughter of a pseudo-Viking village, the mist turning red with blood. The chief and his son, who now both want the same vengeance as Spear wanted for his family, will go to hell and back to see that through. Even at the cost of their soul, humans are spiteful, driven creatures, and will leave self-preservation behind if it means inflicting pain on those they think deserve it. Morality is twisted even further when Spear and Fang encounter a slave to a pseudo-Egyptian queen who uses the threat of his daughter to make him do horrible things. Our duo are put through similar treatment, forced into a weapon against other lands and peoples, going through the motions of war over and over to help a conqueror destroy armies and inflict pain. Somehow, society can seem even more needlessly barbaric than when it's just nature. So where does that come from? Are we that different from animals in nature? Are we barbarians or sophisticated sadists? Genndy Tartakovsky examines this in probably the most left-field episode before the second season finale, a standalone episode called The Primal Theory, where Charles Darwin in 1890 meets with his fellows of the British Institute to discuss his evolutionary findings. There is a strong implication that humans are in fact not that different than their animal counterparts. What's more, Charles posits that maybe every human has a primal instinct within them, and given extreme circumstances, that beast could come out. A major stressor, that very night, in the form of a deranged, psychopathic killer ape-man on crack, the fight or flight in Sir Darlington, master of the house, re-emerges, and he chooses to fight like it's 1858 again.
Oxford boxing champion? Let him have it, old man!
The resulting bloodbath ends up being quite the shock, to say the least. Humans cannot separate themselves from where they came from, what they are. Returning to Spear and Fang, we often get to see their memories, either through alien old ladies or simple dreams. And with Spear in particular, we saw at the very beginning his struggle to keep going, how he wished to join his lost family. Initially, he made the choice to live on out of revenge, like the chief, and yet he found a new home in Fang. Now that they are finally safe and secluded, Spear knows Mira will be alright, and Fang will raise her remaining young. But what of himself? He used to draw for his children and expressed himself in art, leaving traces of himself behind on the walls of his caves. He wishes to be gentle, but this world, his very nature, has left him fighting and screaming and killing for a long, long time. He does not fit squarely into this new world. Violence begets violence. And yet, life finds a way. Genndy Tartakovsky deserves to put his name, which is really fun to say by the way, across this magnum opus. He took everything he learned across his impressive career as a director from all his beloved works and cranked every element up to 11 for Primal.
It's never thinking about our limitations. It's always thinking about what's the best quality and what's amazing to watch.